Besieged by horrors across the stars, as well as the demonic, humanity could not prosper. Their fall during the Age of Strife led to countless deaths, hopelessness, and a fractured civilization. And then a golden light shone across the darkness. Hope came in the form of one man, the Emperor. The almost impossible task of reclaiming Terra from the techno-barbarian warlords, as well as unifying all human worlds, would require a massive army, amongst many other things. No one man alone could accomplish such a feat, and for many editions of Warhammer 40K, it seemed that besides Malcador, the Emperor could, and did, do it all. But the Emperor is not omnipotent. He is not all-knowing. He is not perfect. He is flawed. He is not a god, at least not yet, and thus he did have help. If we look between the pages of the novel Saturnine, as well as the Warhawk, we are introduced into a major player in the creation of the Primarchs, a Perpetual by the name of Erda, the mother of Primarchs. What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and today we're here to talk about Warhammer 40K, or I guess in this matter, Warhammer 30K, as we dive into the lore of some pretty crazy stuff. Erda, the mother of Primarch. So like I was saying earlier, for the longest time we thought that the Emperor created the Primarchs through his genetics alone. However, that is not the case. He did have some help, and in this 40 Facts video, we are going to look at all the information we have from this new character, Erda. So without further ado, let's dive right in. During the war to reclaim Terra from the techno-barbarian warlords, the Emperor, or Neoth as he was known at that time, rose to power as a king via allying with many Perpetuals. These undying beings were a strong asset towards the Emperor's goal, but as fate would have it, all but a few would leave him for one reason or another. The Perpetual, Erda, stayed for her adoration of the Emperor alongside Malcador the Sigillite, and another known simply as Astartes.
Disaffection grew amongst our kin. Even the best of us could barely keep up, and I think he resented that. He is quite ruthless, and he is astoundingly arrogant. I suppose it would be hard not to be if you were him. He was always right. He never looked for advice or counsel. He reshaped the world and drove it forward, and he would not be questioned on the merit of his plan. To do so was heresy. Most of us divorced ourselves from his efforts. He was taking risks. One by one, Perpetuals aligned to him slipped away. He was glad to see the backs of them, I think. He was tired of their objection, weary of their caution. He wanted results. He became angry with the minds that could not match his speed of thought and his genius. So, most of us left him. They went away into other lives, or went into hiding, or left the homeworld. A few stayed. The Sigillite, of course. He was always married to the cause.
In an effort to circumvent this loss of manpower, the Emperor began the Primarch Project. A plan to artificially create 20 loyal warriors was sent into motion. Erda, alongside Astartes, helped create these demigods, but even with their genetic expertise, the Emperor could not finish the Primarchs as he intended. He needed a particular set of gene stock, Erda's genes, and so the Emperor combined his own genes with that of Erda, and thus the Primarchs were born. The father, the Emperor, and the mother, Erda, had created their children, the 20 Primarchs. Even though Erda and Neoth birthed the Perpetuals into existence, they each had a different plan for them. The Emperor needed the ultimate soldier to force humanity's evolution, but Erda wanted the Primarchs to become more human and less like tools to be discarded after their use. In an effort to save the Primarchs, and in return save humanity, Erda unknowingly became the conduit of the Chaos Gods, and caused the warp tear that flung the Primarchs across the galaxy. After this massive blow to the Emperor's plans, she fled and cast herself into exile. Angered at this betrayal, the Emperor chose to simply move on and not punish her, even after finding her whereabouts. Could this be due to love? Was there something more going on between these two Perpetuals? Only one can assume. Years later, during the end of the Siege of Terra, Erda was approached by an Astarte of the Word-Bearers, Erebus. This chaotic marine came after Erda's power through joining chaos. She refused, and Erebus had no choice but to force her, and so he summoned forth 4 greater demons of chaos, each one pertaining to the one of the 4 chaos gods. This would normally be considered overkill, but let's not forget that Erda is the second strongest Perpetual after that of the Emperor of Mankind. And as the 4 demons stood before her small, fragile frame, Erda's body began to split into 3 beings. The first was an older human, capable of freezing anything she touched in place. The second was a young woman wielding a staff and radiating a strong psychic presence. And the final was a little girl clutching a bloody scythe. The battle was indeed an epic one, as the 4 demons attempted to massacre the 3 women. A whirlwind of psychic energy emanated from the battle. But by the end of it all, Erda triumphed. She was exhausted and in a weakened state when Erebus came up to her, placing his anatheme blade to her neck. Even against a Perpetual, a lethal blow from this weapon meant certain death. Once again, Erebus asked her to join Chaos, but this time her response was a mouthful of bloody spit across his face. The last thing she heard was the frustrated yells of Erebus saying, "Worship me!" And just as quickly as she was introduced, Erda met her end. With that being said, I want to know what your thoughts are on this new character. She has a lot to do with a lot of things in 40K. There is a little bit there that I didn't mention, that she actually talks to a lot of the other Perpetuals in the story, such as John Grammaticus and Olanus Pius, and she puts a lot of things into motion, and it's just crazy how, like, for so many editions of 40K, she wasn't brought up, because obviously she wasn't a thing. And with these novels, we get to learn more about the intricacies of the heresy, the Great Crusade, the creation of the Primarchs, and we now know that the Emperor didn't just create the Primarchs completely through his genetic prowess. He actually made it alongside Erda, a Perpetual, the second strongest Perpetual at that. And that's crazy to think that, I mean, where the Emperor is looked at as a god, since all of his crazy feats that he's capable of, such as subduing an uncharted Catan, making treaties with the Mechanicus, and just everything that he was able to do, smiting Horus in one attack. Like, Erda, she's right behind him. So in all senses of, of the word, she is a goddess. So that's just crazy that such a major character has just been added to the 40K, universe. And I just want to get your guys' thoughts and opinions on Erda. Like, do you like it? Do you think she was just shoehorned in here? The thing I don't like about this is that she kind of just came out of nowhere and then she's dead. So it's like, if you had any questions, any ideas, anything like that, it's kind of like we'll never get those answered, because I mean, her story's over. The other thing too is this kind of humanizes the Emperor even more so, where he's not just like this all-powerful god. He does have flaws, as we've seen time and time again, with the Emperor keeping secrets from his sons, and we now know that it wasn't chaos 100% that, you know, flung them into the various corners of the galaxy and had their way with the Primarchs. It was Erda, and she had good reasoning towards doing so, because where the Emperor wanted the Primarchs to be kind of like the Astartes, a tool towards a means of an end, to be discarded after use, kind of like with the Thunder Warriors, where she saw them as kind of children, really. Like, she wanted them to live their lives and still usher humanity towards the next step in evolution, Homo superiors, as she called it, which surprisingly is the same term that Magneto used with like the X-Men. Whereas, yes, they're mutants, but they're Homo superior, they're better, they're stronger than humans, and they were seen as the next step of evolution. So that was pretty cool. And then also, like, was the Emperor in love with Erda? Like, were they together? Maybe, because I mean, they're Perpetuals, so they've been along for a long time and living life. Maybe they had a thing or two or something, and I mean, the whole creation of the Primarchs must have meant something to the both of them, perhaps. Continuing on with that, like, her being the second strongest Perpetual was pretty badass, because honestly, like, we saw her take on 4 greater demons of chaos. Now, that is not a feat to just simply overlook, because when you think about it, Space Marines struggle to take on 1. Chances are they can't do it. Grey Knights, with much difficulty, can take out a greater demon. And of course, Primarchs can barely take out 1 greater demon, as we've seen with the whole rivalry between Ka Banda and Sanguinius. So, Erda taking on 4 of them and coming out on top just shows you how strong she is, and that also kind of scales us as to how strong the Emperor is. Probably in his prime, he could have taken on all 4 of those greater demons, I mean, with slight difficulty, I'd say, because where she kind of struggled to do it, we saw her that she was at a very weakened state to where she couldn't defend herself against Erebus. We know that the Emperor took out Horus, who was empowered by all 4 of the Chaos Gods, so again, that kind of shows you the strength of the Emperor as well as Erda. And lastly, the last thing I want to talk about is that perhaps she must have done something, some tempering with maybe the 2nd and the 11th Primarch to make them do whatever it is they did that allowed the Emperor to rid them from his Great Crusade. Like, the Edict of Obliteration completely erased them from existence. Maybe that was Erda's doing. Maybe she had some type of failsafe implanted into these 2 Primarchs, and maybe that's why they're lost and forgotten. Maybe they're out there still alive looking for her or trying to resurrect her in some way. And also, maybe that means that 1 or both of these Primarchs were female, since obviously you can't have 20 Primarchs being all male when half of that was Erda's genetics also implemented into the mix. So perhaps we do have a reason, a way to get female Space Marines. Shocker, right? So, a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to think about. I really want to get to know your guys' thoughts down below. So let's keep the discussion going, let's keep the conversation going. Let me know your thoughts on Erda, the mother of Primarchs, the 2nd strongest Perpetual, and I'll see you in the comments. Thanks again for listening, guys. If you do like what we do here, hit that like button, subscribe, because we keep putting out 40K videos each and every day. And if you guys want to go that extra mile, we do have a Patreon page where you guys can pledge a simple $1 a month, and that really helps us in giving you guys these videos. So, if not, I understand. Share, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. This has been the Silent Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll catch you then. Peace.